Today is a great day, my friends, because today we are making pizza. Welcome to the Unfinished Kitchen, where oops is an ingredient in the kitchen and in life. My name is Devin Negretti, and I am so excited because who doesn't like pizza? I'm also really excited because this is the first time I'm making this pizza dough recipe. This is one of those recipes where you make it and you actually let the dough rise, whereas I typically make a recipe that's pizza in 30 minutes or less, and you will see that one next week. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I pre-planned a little bit this time. I have my 1 cup of flour in my mixing bowl. And then I have my teaspoon of yeast, my teaspoon of sugar, and my teaspoon of salt in my fancy little measuring bowls. So we're going to go ahead and dump all of those in here. And we're going to give that a gentle mix. Super gentle, and then we are going to add our warm water. So I am going to show you my trick for warm water because I don't trust myself. So we're going to bring you over here. Okay, so this is my fancy pot. Please ignore the bacon grease from breakfast over here. But this is my fancy little pot that has a temperature gauge on it that allows me to read what the actual temperature of my water is. So I just made tea and my water is a little too hot. So I'm actually going to grab a few ice cubes. But typically what I do is I just pour some water in here and I let it get to temp. So the temp that I need it to be at right now for warm water is 80 degrees. This is a super nifty little gadget that I found on Amazon. So instead of heating it up because of the temp, we're now going to put ice in it to help cool the water down. Okay, so I was going to put ice in it, but it's a 5-degree day out here in upstate New York. So instead, I just set it outside and I got it to about 110 degrees, which is exactly where we want our warm water to be. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this in here because you don't want that water to be too hot or it's going to kill your yeast. And that would be a sad day. All right, so then we're just going to gently mix this, but being careful not to over mix it. And then now we're just going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, so now it is time to go ahead and add the rest of our flour and to continue mixing our dough. I like to add a little bit of flour at a time. I don't like to just dump it in there. And I also stop and scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure that the flour gets incorporated. Right, I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl again. So you want to mix the dough until it's all the flour is incorporated and then it's turned into a nice little dough ball. And sometimes, especially if you're using a KitchenAid, I feel like it doesn't get, everything down at the bottom. So I kind of like to scoop under and fold the water or the flour onto the top to make sure that it's easily getting incorporated. All right, this is certainly looking a little bit better, and then it's like it's coming together. So we're just going to do one more round of it mixing. And I'm mixing this like if you're using a KitchenAid, I mix this on like speed 2 to make sure it just helps get everything incorporated quickly. And then according to the directions that I have, it says even though we've had our full 2 cups of flour, to add flour until the dough is no longer sticky. So I put a little bit of flour in this cup. I also have it in here to flour my surface so I'm not like constantly sticking my hand in the flour jar. So I'm gonna add a little bit of flour as we go to make sure it's no longer sticky. And then I'm gonna repeat this process until I have a nice little dough ball. Okay, that only took 5 million tries, but it's fine. We finally got our dough to pretty much to the point where we want it to be, which I'm able to tap the dough and barely any of it's coming off of my hand. So that is the consistency that we want. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to scrape this onto my floured surface, which I am going to flour now. And like I said, this is the first time I'm using this recipe. So just bear with me because that's what we do. This is exactly what the Unfinished Kitchen is about. It's about using recipes that were given to you. It's about using recipes in a cookbook. It's about using recipes that are on Pinterest and going through and us figuring out together. And that's exactly what we're doing. Okay, so there's not a lot of tools that you need in the kitchen, but one of my favorite, especially if you are going to be like all about dough, is a dough scraper. It is one of my favorite tools because it really allows you to get all of the dough off of the bowl. So we're going to roll this out onto our surface. And it's still a little bit sticky, but that's okay because we're going to continuously add flour to this as we need it. All right, so I have a floured surface and then I'm also sprinkling flour on the dough to make it easier to handle. And now we're going to just knead our dough. So I just take it and I fold, and I take it and I fold. And there are so many different ways you can knead flour. I used to work in my parents' pizza shop that they had, and we would make pizza dough all the time, although we made it like massive pizza dough in bulk, so not necessarily like this, small amount of pizza dough. So we would, when we would make pizzas and then we would knead it, there were a couple different techniques. I can't remember one of them because like I think you like fold it over with your hand and like you use the table and then you just like continuously do that. So that was one of the techniques. But the one that I always used that I found the fastest was just tucking the dough underneath. So this is still just like a little bit sticky, but just taking the edge of the dough and tucking it and making a ball. Take the edge of the dough, tuck it, and make it a ball. Again, like I said, this dough is still a little bit sticky, but that's okay. Sometimes that happens. And I'm sure that some of this is because I just don't have any patience at the moment or ever. So that's something that I need to work on. But also you're using all this flour, so I just take the surface to kind of suck up all the flour and knead my dough. I find the process of kneading dough a stress reliever. It's like those squishies, like a stress ball. This is my stress ball. Okay, you have to be careful too because you don't want to over knead the dough. So I think that I've kind of gotten like pretty close to that point. So now what we're going to do is we're going to oil our handy dandy bowl. I'm going to wash my hands real quick though to make this a little bit easier. All right, so now I have my olive oil. I'm just going to drizzle a little bit into the bowl, kind of get it a little bit all over the bowl. And now we're going to take our dough ball, we're going to set it in here, and then we're going to roll it so then the whole dough ball is nice and covered in oil. And then take some plastic wrap, press and seal, or honestly, you could take a kitchen towel. Although right now I only have one kitchen towel because I'm doing laundry and my other kitchen towels are in the dryer. So we're going to do plastic wrap. And then we're going to set this in a warm place for 2 to 4 hours. So we're going to be closer on like the 2.5 hour side. I am going to place this on my oven. Typically what I would do is like same with my cinnamon roll recipe, I would put the dough in the oven and turn the light on, and then the heat from the light in the enclosed oven, that would help keep it warm enough and rise. However, I am making the cookies from my last video, so I'm just going to set this on top of the oven to let it rise. So I will see you back here in probably about 2.5 hours. All right, so our dough has officially doubled in size and it's looking quite lovely and fluffy. So we are going to flour our surface. It's all ready, and then we're going to punch our dough. Perfect. And then now we're just going to let it kind of fall out of the bowl onto our floured surface. All right, and now we're going to poke it just to get the air out of our dough. And then we're going to flip it over and poke it some more. And then I like to put a little bit of flour on my pizza pan just to help it keep it from sticking, and it's easier to come off. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can do it whenever you're making pizza, but that's just typically what I do. You can also use cornmeal if you're using it like in an actual pizza oven, or if you're putting it on a cooktop. So I'm going to now kind of transfer it over here. And I mean, it is very, very stretchy and stretching on its own, which is quite nice. I'm actually going to slide it onto here. Oops. You know what? I think I'm going to ball it up a little bit. I mean, I don't want to handle it too much because I want to keep its, its fluffiness. So there we go. And then now I'm just going to kind of spread it out like this. And then just kind of like lightly stretch it and lightly handle the dough, because we want to make sure that the dough keeps its fluffy shape. And it's going to make that nice airy crust. At least I think it is. This is the first time I'm making this, so I hope it makes it. And then you're just going to keep flipping it and stretching it onto the length of the pan until it's nice and round. While I'm doing this, I was watching a show on TV, and it was talking about a pizza farm, how like there are pizza farms out there where they grow everything on the farm, and like, with like goats, and then making cheese from the goats. And it's a really cool, interesting concept, because you can go and make your own pizza using all the elements that they have like on the farm, and you bring like a picnic table or a picnic blanket, and you just have your own little experience. And then the person on the show, she had like one of those in her backyard. I'm like, that's a fun concept. Like, I'd want to do that. But then it made me think like PYOT, like bring your own pizza topping. So then like I can make the dough and I can supply different sauces, and then everybody can just bring their own toppings, because, not all of us like the same things on our pizzas. So I just thought that that might be a fun idea. And now I'm having kind of issues with my dough, and it's sticking onto the pan. So I'm going to add a little bit more flour. All right, after multiple attempts, we finally have it fit to the pizza pan. Yay, me. I may have beaten it to a pulp, but we are where we need it to be, and that's all I want, so we can make dinner. Okay, now it's time to dress the pizza. All right. So there's a few different ways that I like to dress my pizza, and one to give it just like a little bit more kick and a little bit of flavor is starting a base of garlic. I'm just getting that spread out on the crust, and using just a regular spoon is perfect for spreading out your pizza or your pizza sauce and your garlic. I like to get sauce over the entire pizza crust, like all the way out to the edges. I want it covered in sauce. I don't want any inch of the pizza without sauce on it. My oven is also preheating to 525 degrees, and we will pop this in there for 10 minutes. All right, perfect. And we're going to add just a little bit of pizza seasoning to the base, and then we'll add a little bit more on top afterwards. So we're just having a grand old cheese pizza. Let's get my mozzarella cheese. It's going to be one cheesy pizza. And then for even more flavor, just a little bit more pizza seasoning on top. And here is our beautiful cheese pizza that we have beaten to a pulp. So now I'm going to pop this in the oven for 10 minutes, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, our pizza is all done. It was uber hot, so I think it seared off my cheese a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and cut into it so I can show you what it looks like. But even though, I kind of worked it and beat it to a pulp, it still looks good. We're going to use my son's plate. Hope he doesn't mind. Ouch. I am struggling to get this cut and off of the pan. And we've almost got this spice. And I have a visitor. All right, come here. I'm going to try a piece of your pizza. Is that okay? I'm going to try a piece of your pizza. Ready? I'm sorry. Did you want that? Mama, pizza. I mean, it's fully cooked. And the flavor is there. Oh, you want to go sit in your seat? All right. And it's pretty good. It's more of like I got it to a thin crust. But I mean, it's super tasty and it tastes like pizza. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Is that yummy?
Yeah.
How about you over there? How does it taste?
Sorry, I probably would have cooked it longer, but then you run the risk of burning the top.
I'll put that on my Google review. I think it tastes good.